Zara pressed herself against the cold metal wall, her breathing controlled, her scales shifting to match the darkness. 3 guards passed within arm's reach, oblivious. The fortress of Warlord Kronak stretched around her like a monument to cruelty, built from the bones of conquered worlds. She had infiltrated worse places, killed more dangerous targets, but something felt wrong tonight. The air itself seemed to hum with anticipation, as if the fortress knew violence was coming. She moved through the shadows toward the throne room, each step silent despite her armored boots. Intelligence reports said Kronak would be alone except for his personal guards, easy targets. She had killed 16 sentries to reach this point, and her blade still hungered. Through the ornate archway ahead, she could see the massive chamber where the warlord held court. Golden pillars rose toward a vaulted ceiling, and between them stood Kronak himself, a towering figure in black armor that had never known defeat. But he wasn't alone. A human knelt before him in chains. Zara froze. Humans were rare this far into contested space, fragile creatures from a minor world that barely registered in galactic politics. This one looked half dead, blood matting his dark hair, his simple clothes torn and filthy. Kronak was speaking, his voice echoing through the chamber with the satisfied rumble of a predator toying with prey. Zara calculated distances, angles of approach. She could kill Kronak before he finished his sentence. Her hand moved toward her blade. The human's head snapped up. His eyes locked onto Kronak with an intensity that made Zara's combat instincts scream a warning. Something was very wrong. The chains around the human's wrists shattered, not picked, not broken with tools. Shattered, as if they were nothing more than brittle ice. The human moved, and the world seemed to slow around him. Cole's fist drove into Kronak's throat before the warlord could draw breath. The impact sounded like thunder in the enclosed space. Kronak staggered backward, shock and pain twisting his features, and Cole was already moving again. He caught the warlord's arm as it reached for a weapon, twisted with mechanical precision, and drove his other hand through Kronak's chest armor. The reinforced plating that could withstand plasma fire crumpled like paper. Kronak fell, his eyes wide with the incomprehension of someone who had never imagined his own death. The entire sequence took 3 seconds. Zara's blade was still half drawn when it ended. Alarms shrieked through the fortress. Guards poured into the throne room from every entrance, weapons raised, shock giving way to fury. The human stood over Kronak's corpse, blood dripping from his knuckles, and smiled. It was the coldest expression Zara had ever seen. They came at him in a wave, 12 trained killers who had enforced Kronak's will across a dozen star systems. Cole moved through them like water flowing around stones. He caught the first guard's weapon arm, broke it, took the plasma rifle, and fired 3 shots before the body hit the ground. 2 more guards fell. He threw the rifle like a spear, impaling another through the chest, then closed the distance to the remaining attackers with impossible speed. His movements were economical, brutal, each strike ending a life or removing a threat. No wasted motion, no hesitation, no mercy. Zara watched from the shadows, her mission suddenly irrelevant. She had trained her entire life for combat, had studied under masters of 17 different fighting styles, and she was seeing something beyond any of them. The human fought like violence itself had taken flesh and learned to think. When the last guard fell, silence returned to the throne room. Cole stood among the bodies, barely breathing hard, and looked directly at her hiding spot. "You can come out," he said in perfect galactic standard. "I know you've been there since the 3rd hallway." Zara stepped into the light, her blade now fully drawn but held in a neutral position. "You killed Kronak. My contract is void. Your Talon Coalition," Cole said, reading the subtle markings on her armor. "Assassin class. They sent you after him too? For 6 months I've planned this. 6 months of preparation, intelligence gathering, bribing informants." She gestured at Kronak's corpse. "You just walked in and killed him in 3 seconds. How?" Cole's expression didn't change. "He destroyed the colony ship Meridian. 3,000 people. My sister was on that ship." He began walking toward the main exit, stepping over bodies without looking down. "I've been hunting him for 14 weeks. Finally let myself get captured 3 days ago. Waited for the right moment. The chains, Zara said, following him. How did you break reinforced durasteel? I didn't break them. I picked the locks. Took me 2 days to work the tumblers with a piece of wire. He glanced back at her. The breaking sound was for effect. Psychological advantage. Kronak's chest plate can withstand direct hits from heavy weapons. Everything has weak points. You just have to know where to strike. He stopped at the doorway, listening. Vask will know Kronak is dead within minutes. He'll mobilize the fleet. If the warships scatter, they'll terrorize the sector for years. We need to stop them here. We? Sara's scales rippled with surprise. I work alone. The communications hub is 2 kilometers north. We get there, warn your coalition. They can catch Vask's fleet before it breaks orbit. Otherwise, thousands more die. Cole started moving again. You can help or stay here. Either way, Zara made her decision in half a heartbeat. She'd never seen anyone fight like this human. Never seen such controlled fury. If he was offering partnership, she'd be a fool to refuse. They moved through the fortress together, and she quickly realized Cole had memorized the entire layout. He led them through maintenance tunnels and supply corridors, avoiding the main passages where guards would be flooding toward the throne room. But Vask was no fool. Blast doors slammed down across their path, sealing off the northern sections. Emergency lights bathed everything in crimson. Cole didn't slow down. He pulled a small device from his pocket, pressed it against the door's control panel, and the mechanism sparked and died. The door groaned open. Military override codes, he explained. Stole them from Kronak's personal computer 2 days ago. They emerged into a central atrium where 30 guards waited in formation, weapons trained on the doorway. Someone had predicted their route. Cole and Zara dove in opposite directions as plasma fire filled the air. She came up firing, her blade humming as it deflected energy bolts, her pistol barking in her other hand. Cole had no weapons. He ran directly at them. It should have been suicide. Instead, it was a massacre. He used the guards' own crossfire against them, moving so that their shots hit each other. He grabbed weapons from falling hands and used them until they ran dry, then discarded them and took more. Zara provided covering fire, but she was barely needed. Within 90 seconds, the atrium floor was covered with the dead and dying. Cole stood in the center, breathing harder now, a cut on his cheek bleeding freely. The hub is just ahead, Zara said, checking her tactical display. But Vask himself is there. Sensors show 47 life signs. Elite guards. Good, Cole said. I was hoping he'd show up. They approached carefully, using scanner scramblers to mask their presence. Through the hub's transparent steel walls, they could see Vask coordinating with his ship captains. The general was even larger than Kronak had been, his forearms moving in agitated gestures as he barked orders. The war fleet was already powering up. They had minutes at most. I'll create a diversion, Cole said. You get to the communications array and send the warning. Don't stop for anything. That's a death sentence, Zara protested. Even you can't handle 47 elite soldiers alone. Cole smiled that cold smile again. Watch me. He stepped into the open and fired a single shot into the ceiling. Every head turned. Every weapon swung toward him. And Cole charged. Zara used the distraction to slip along the outer wall, her camouflage active, moving toward the communications terminal on the hub's far side. Behind her, the sounds of combat erupted like a contained war. Screams, gunfire, the crunch of breaking bone, all of it blending into a symphony of violence. She reached the terminal and began inputting the emergency codes. The coalition needed exact coordinates, fleet strength, defensive capabilities. Her fingers flew across the controls even as she watched Cole fight in her peripheral vision. He'd taken down 12 guards already, using their own weapons, their own bodies as shields. But there were too many. They were surrounding him, forcing him into a corner where even his speed couldn't save him. Vask himself entered the fight, dual plasma cannons in his upper arms. He fired in controlled bursts, hurting Cole backward, boxing him in. The other guards pressed the advantage. Cole's movements became more desperate, more erratic. He was tiring. Even humans had limits. Zara finished the transmission and drew her blade. She'd been an observer long enough. She leaped from her position, her battle cry echoing through the hub, and drove her blade through the nearest guard's spine. The soldier spun to face this new threat, and Cole used the moment to break free from the corner. He caught one of Vask's cannons and tore it from the general's grip with such force that the arm broke. Vask roared in pain and fury. They fought back to back now, Zara and Cole. Two warriors from different worlds moving in perfect synchronization. She covered his blind spots, he covered hers. They flowed around each other like dancers who'd rehearsed for years. The elite guards fell, one by one, their training and equipment meaningless against this impossible partnership. Vask retreated toward the exit, 3 guards forming a protective barrier. "This changes nothing," he snarled. "My fleet will burn your worlds to ash. Every human colony, every coalition outpost, all of them will die screaming." Cole's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "Your fleet is already gone." Through the hub's windows, they could see space lighting up with weapons fire. Coalition ships had arrived, dozens of them, and they were systematically destroying Kronak's war fleet. The ships that tried to run were caught by tractor beams and disabled. The ships that tried to fight were obliterated. It was over in minutes. Vask watched his armada die, his expression cycling through disbelief, rage, and finally resignation. "Surrender," Zara said, her blade at his throat. "You've lost." Vask laughed, a bitter sound. "I haven't lost. I've just learned." He looked at Cole with something approaching respect. Galactic intelligence said humans were weak, barely worth noticing. We were wrong. Weren't we? Cole stepped forward, his eyes still carrying that terrible intensity. "Tell everyone. Tell every warlord, every empire, every species that thinks about threatening humanity. We don't start fights, but we end them. Always." Coalition forces breached the hub moments later, taking Vask and the surviving guards into custody. Medical teams swarmed around Cole and Zara, treating their wounds despite their protests. A coalition commander approached, his expression grave. "The Warlord's network is broken," he said. 14 systems liberated, tens of thousands freed. "This is the biggest victory we've had in years." He looked at Cole. "Your people have our gratitude. If there's anything we can do, there is," Cole said quietly. "Remember this. Remember what one human can do when you give him a reason, and pray you never give us a reason to go to war." The commander saluted and withdrew. Zara stood beside Cole, looking out at the debris field that had been a war fleet. She'd killed many beings in her career, fought countless battles, but she'd never seen anything like what had happened today. One human had achieved what entire armies could not. "You're terrifying," she said softly. "Your entire species is terrifying." Cole's expression finally softened. "We're not monsters. We're just protective." "Hurt our own, and we become something else. Something you don't want to see." He started walking toward the Coalition transport that would take them away from this place of death. "The galaxy should hope we stay friends." Zara followed, already composing her report in her mind. She would tell her superiors everything, every detail of what she'd witnessed, the speed, the precision, the absolute refusal to stop until the mission was complete. Humanity had been dismissed as insignificant for too long. That would change now. It had to change. Because she had reached for her blade, ready to strike down a warlord. But the human had already cut him down, and in doing so had carved out a new place for his species in the galaxy. A place built on respect, fear, and the understanding that some lines should never be crossed. The stars themselves would remember this day and the lesson it taught. Humanity had arrived, and the universe would never be the same.